me now, Republican Texas Congressman Brian Babin. Congressman, we've never seen anything like this. It's about 4 times worse than what we saw 5 years ago. Your reaction?
My reaction is if it's 4 times worse than it was 5 years ago, it's a very, very bad problem. And quite frankly, Turkey needs to secure their border. They cannot open their border up and just start flooding hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Syrian and Afghan and other refugees from different countries into the EU. Quite frankly, the EU's had 5 years to get their act together with some kind of a plan to do this, and they have yet to do it. And unfortunately, Mr. President Erdogan of Turkey, all I can say about him is with friends like him, who needs enemies? He has found himself embroiled in a situation in Idlib in northern Syria, and more refugees are coming into his country, and he simply wants to siphon them out of the country into the EU's lap. And there's several EU countries that are simply not going to tolerate that anymore, and Greece is the back door of it, and I don't blame them for what they're doing for 1 second.
You know, just to get the viewer up to speed, Turkish authorities now reporting another person killed, potentially 10 wounded by fire coming from the Greek side. We've got news reports coming in, quote, a new refugee crisis could break up the EU. It's, again, worse than 2015. 2015, Congressman, 1 million refugees came into the EU.
Right.
It rocked Germany. It threatened Angela Merkel's chancellorship, caused lasting fractures and splits between the EU bloc's countries. Now it's 4 times greater.
Well, and on top of that, at this particular time when we have that COVID-19 virus, the Wuhan coronavirus, which is spreading around the world, this couldn't happen at a worse time. And so Turkey absolutely has got to rethink this, close their borders. It's quite apparent what Erdogan is trying to do. And yet, let me just say this, at the same time, we have to secure our border as well, because we have an open border on the southern border, and 1,100 Chinese nationals last year have come in illegally into the country. That doesn't tell us how many that we did not catch. And we have 70 nations around the world that are that have the COVID-19 virus, and so we have to get our act together as well. And so I'm certainly hoping that the Democrats will start working with the administration and us, we Republicans in Congress, and get our act together as well to keep the Americans safe and healthy. And same thing goes with the EU.
The president just now tweeting that he is congratulating Congress, agreeing to provide $8 billion to fight the coronavirus. The issue with the Europeans' broken system, they are still relying on a system that says migrants can get asylum in the first EU country they step foot in. That has stressed out to the max countries like Greece, Italy, or Spain, particularly Greece. I mean, Turkey is now, it is a NATO ally. It's a geopolitical threat now to Europe. That's what the Washington Post says. In other words, what's going on in Syria, with Syria and Russia attacking Turkey's troops, Turkey is saying, open the floodgates. You, Europe, you've got to step in and help out with what's going on with Russia and Syria. We're going to open the floodgates, send roughly 4 million refugees into your territory.
You know what? It's a terrible situation, but Erdogan in Turkey is weaponizing a group of refugees. I know they have 3.6 million refugees in Turkey now that have come out of Syria in the civil war. But, you know, the EU has paid Turkey a lot of funding, and they agreed to keep these refugees. And now, all of a sudden, things aren't going quite so well with Turkey's invasion and trying to meet with the Russians and the Syrian troops up there. It's a terrible humanitarian crisis, and it's going to get worse unless they start getting together. And I was glad to hear that the EU was meeting with Turkey and Erdogan, and we're hoping that they get their act together.
Yeah, Congressman, it seems like Europe is saying, we'll give Turkey money. You, Turkey, take the refugees. We'll give you a lot of money. And now they're saying to Greece, okay, Greece, you're to deal with Turkey. We're going to give you military hardware, troops, and money, Greece, to deal with Turkey now. So is that the answer from Europe? Just, you know, give money but not fix their systems?
Liz, this is one of the big problems with the EU. You know, one of the biggest reasons that the United Kingdom left the EU is because of the immigration policies or lack thereof. And so this is very unfair to do to one of the border countries like Greece, where these people are going to be coming through, to leave them in the lurch like this. So absolutely, you're exactly right. This is a real humanitarian crisis in the making. But you can hardly blame Greece. You can hardly blame some of these other countries that don't want to be flooded with millions of people coming out of that region. And we saw some of the disastrous consequences of that 5 years ago. And you've got the Czech Republic, you've got Slovakia, you've got Austria, you've got Poland, Hungary. They're pushing back on this.
Yeah.
And so I think the bigger countries in the EU, like Germany and the rest of them, they better get their act together and start. Yes,
but
ma'am.
instead, they're doing, policy and legislation ad hoc and on the fly. I mean, now Greece just suspended processing asylum applications for a month. Again, the reform plan that we were just talking about would have allocated refugees among EU member countries according to the country's economic strength and population size. But then we had, I think we had Hungary and Poland pushing back on that.
That's right.
I mean, I don't know how they fix this, sir. What do you think is going to happen?
I think they need to work a deal with Turkey. Turkey is going to have to realize that they've got themselves in a real quicksand and mired down in northern Syria. We already have about 900,000 displaced persons from northern Syria that are going to have to be going somewhere. The whole thing, you can lay the blame on Assad. You can lay the blame at the feet of Russia as well. But Turkey they've made a bed that they have to lie in, and now they're wanting the EU to help bail them out. And so it's going to take a lot of diplomacy and a lot of people sitting down and accepting what maybe a few things they may not like, and hopefully for the EU's sake, that these countries that are pushing back on these refugees, they saw what happened in France. They saw what happened in Germany. They don't want a repeat of that in their countries, and so I can't blame them one bit.
Sir, what should be the Trump administration's reaction to this crisis with Turkey at the border with Greece? We are seeing that the administration is supporting the NATO ally Turkey. What should be the reaction here?
Well, I think we can't be super pleased with what President Erdogan has been doing, because he has stuck his thumb in our eye on several occasions. He purchased S-400 missile defense system, which was against the sanctions rule that we had in place. They purchased that from Russia, and now here they are dealing with Russia in a conflict up in northern Syria. So I'm glad it's a very convoluted, complex situation that I think the administration is doing the very best they can. And I'm hoping that Secretary of State Pompeo and others can work this thing out amicably.
Congressman Brian Babin, always terrific. Come back soon. Great to see you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.